Saltburn. Or as I like to call it, Anxiety the Film. Make sure you pop your Prozac with your cherry Coke icy and some popcorn, because this one left me in shambles trying to stomach it. Emerald Fennell's genius at work has a very easy to understand plot, but its weird tone and upsetting scenes had me so baffled that I couldn't even process what I was watching until it was already over. It's a tale as old as time. Greed. This is the movie that you should watch if you're trying to relive that feeling where you're 8 years old again and you're the last one awake at the sleepover. It's 4 a.m., you're in an unfamiliar house that's freaking you out, and you're scared to wake any of the girls up, but you're also scared to call your mom because you're afraid she's gonna be mad if she has to pick you up at this hour. Yeah, that's exactly what this movie made me feel like. Before you watch any further, you need to know that this analysis and review has more spoilers than that one car guy from high school's Instagram page, so you should probably skip to this point right here if you are interested in watching it without spoilers. In the film, Oliver Quick, a brainy Oxford student in the early 2000s, isn't really fitting in on campus. That is, until he meets Felix Catton, who's the first student at Oxford to treat him with actual respect. This meet happened on complete coincidence, it seemed, where Felix's bike had popped a tire and Oliver just so happened to allow him to use his. The two start to bond when Oliver tells Felix about his rough home life and his parents who battle addiction. As they become friends, Felix invites Oliver for the summer over to his family's estate, a place called Saltburn. Felix brings Oliver as well as some of his other friends to the estate, and Oliver is enjoying the high life of the elaborate mansion and nice things, but he's also having to navigate this labyrinth of deceit and manipulation that the swanky people of the estate are weaving around. It soon becomes clear to the audience that Oliver is developing this borderline obsession. Borderline is actually loosely used as the term here. Oliver has a full-fledged obsession with Felix. He is starting to get really involved with this guy. This obsession that Oliver has with Felix Catton soon turns deadly as there's some quick exits and suicides that are totally coincidental 100%, and Oliver's stay at Saltburn becomes a full-fledged drama fest. As it turns out, Oliver has been a maestro of manipulation this entire time, and he completely planned he and Felix's coincidental meetup bike incident just so he could become privy to the Catton fortune. He's been picking off the estate heiresses and heirs of Saltburn one by one over the summer, and it becomes this really tragically manipulative story about obsession and insatiable greed. The entirety of the film's cinematography is absolutely beautiful, and the weird, edgy, tonal vibes of the movie sometimes made me feel like I was watching a really long perfume commercial. It had this artsy, ethereal vibe that really kind of describes how the top 1% lives. A candy-coated perfume commercial facade that is something only vaguely linear to real life, at least for the average person. The elitists in this movie spend about 99% of the time naked, lounging around, sunbathing, and having these elaborate parties with themes and all sorts of special effects just because. It really gives the audience this insider view of how boring it must be to be in that top 1% when you have to resort to these super elaborate forms of entertainment just to thwart off the boredom. They sunbathe naked out in the fields, they float on inner tubes in the ornamental lily ponds. The goal of these scenes was to make Saltburn and the entire concept of it feel completely unattainable to the average person, which is part of the reason I was so surprised that Oliver was the villain all along. Because how could an average Joe ever live their life in a place like Saltburn when they grew up so used to raw and candid experiences? This little guy is the next American Psycho, you can mark my words. But it's no secret that the most disturbing element of this movie is how deeply Oliver is obsessed with Felix throughout the entire film. I mean, after committing first-degree voyeurism and choking it down with a bathtub cocktail, it becomes pretty obvious that this is not a normal friendship. This is when the audience really starts to grasp that Oliver's relationship with Felix is more than romantic, more than platonic, more than sexual even. It is a full-on obsession. Oliver doesn't just want to be like Felix, Oliver wants to be Felix. Don't even get me started on the part where he ends up defiling Felix's grave. That was more than enough to just... Oh my god, he's not gonna do that, is he? I think he just stuck his pee-pee in dirt. But Oliver's desire to be a Canton and to own Saltburn one day isn't the only example of insatiable desire we see in the film. In fact, insatiable desire is pretty much the entire mantra of the movie. Of course, we have our protagonist, or some would argue, most would argue, antagonist Oliver, who drinks Felix's bathwater and goes around after his funeral wearing Felix's clothes, and it's just really weird. But the audience also sees Felix's sister's Venetia's desire to experience something real. She's been raised in Saltburn all her life, and all she knows are these empty shells of people who come to these parties and put on a fake mask every single time they meet her. And that's why... That's why what? I don't know. And that's why she has such an insatiable desire to feel something real. Venetia is completely charmed about how simple and common Oliver is. He's rugged and raw, and he's everything opposite of the dollhouse life she grew up with. That's why their little typo fellatio scene is so important in the movie. It really paints her desire for realness and rawness and something taboo, when her entire life she's lived this picturesque vision of what people want to be and aspire to be. We also see Felix's mother Elspeth Catton's desire to feel something. Elspeth is deeply infatuated with Oliver's pity story, which is all completely a lie about his parents being addicts. It makes her feel exhilarated and purposeful to be able to host Oliver in this lavish place. Her feeling so gratified by Oliver being a guest at Saltburn is a prime example of savior complex. She has a desire to feel important, and that importance is created by saving someone from a bad situation. That's why she always encouraged Felix to bring home pity cases over the summer. We see this mentioned by Venetia when she says that her brother likes to bring home toys for the summer to play with. In Saltburn, it seemed like everybody wanted something they just couldn't, or in Oliver's case, shouldn't have. But the only person who didn't have an insatiable desire was Felix. He represents the ultimate unattainable standard. Wealth, popularity, kindness, empathy, that all came natural to him. Even at the end, where Oliver penetrates the estate, literally, and gains complete control of Saltburn, he still is not the person that he was seeking to be. Felix's wealth, compassion, personality, and let's be honest, Riz, came totally naturally since birth. And at the end, where Oliver has complete control over Saltburn, he seemingly has every single physical thing he could have ever wanted. But all he has is just that. Physical things. He has completely isolated himself from his biological family. He's killed off every single one of the members of the Catton family. He's completely alone, friendless, no partner, no elaborate parties, nothing exciting going on, just him, naked, twirling around in the Saltburn mansion. He has no morals. He didn't come from a long line of prestigious or hardworking people like the Cattons did. He doesn't have a name for himself, didn't overcome any adversities. He only lied and cheated to get into this situation. At the end of the day, even though he wanted to be in control of Saltburn so badly, he still has nothing. He has no one, and he's completely isolated, and his name is just another Joe Blow name. The irony here is that his master plan was so intricate and detailed that it's clear if he would have dedicated and executed that much time and energy into innovation or hard work, he could have made a name for himself and owned lavish things that was just as impressive as the Saltburn estate. But instead, he chose to lie, cheat, steal, and murder, and is ironically in a worse situation, arguably, than he was when he started, when he had a loving family and a decent, modest home in the city. His desire to not just be like a Catton, but to be a Catton was so overwhelming that he ended up losing everything in the process. And not to mention, totally acted out in psychopathy. Go to therapy! Saltburn is easily one of the best movies of 2023. It's not as hard to stomach as I thought it was going to be, but there were definitely some scenes that had me just covering my eyes and completely in shock. Not really out of fear, but more out of embarrassment and shame. It's one of the first movies to really ever make me feel like that, and that's why I think it's such a good piece of work. Saltburn is a psychological thriller, or maybe it's just a really dark comedy that left me in psychological anguish. You can be the judge of that. But it was also a complete delight. There were scenes that were so ironic that I was actually belly laughing, scenes that had me so embarrassed I had to look away, and it was overall just a roller coaster of emotions, and I don't say that about a lot of movies. Describing Saltburn in 2 words, I would say that it's a clever catastrophe, and I would rate it like a 9 out of 10. It is extremely solid, and it's very tempting for me to give it a 10 out of 10. Definitely go see this movie if you haven't already. Just do yourself a favor and don't go see it with your mother. That's all from me on Saltburn. You've been watching Melody Ever After. I'm a video essay channel, and I like to go into all sorts of topics in pop culture like video games, movies, TV, etc. If you're interested in that, I would really appreciate it if you checked me out. Until next time.